Good morning, everyone. My name is Phil Keast. I am the Director of Cloud Computing for National Defense. I'm here today to talk about the cloud journey. Cloud computing, as we know, is really a revolution in computing. In the last 20 years, we really haven't seen anything like it. Organizations completely buying in to the concept of cloud computing and what it means to IT and what it means to entire organizations. And obviously, there's a conference going on and many conferences going on about the cloud. So it's of great interest to a lot of people, and I'm assuming yourselves. So today I'm going to talk about the cloud journey and what it really means to an organization. Now, in my job as Director of Cloud, I have to talk about cloud, explain it, think about it, go to meetings about it every single day. And there are still a lot of people that I speak with who don't truly understand what it means to go from here, which is traditional IT, to cloud, and what it's going to do to an IT organization, and what it's going to do to a business or a government. And I struggled for a long time to figure out a way to explain it. And then one day it came to me. There are 6 things, 6 components, 6 pillars that you have to worry about when you make the cloud journey. And remarkably, those 6 things are very similar to the things you have to worry about when you take your family on vacation. Now that sounds like a little bit of a stretch, but for me, it became a way that I could explain the cloud journey in a way that people could really wrap their heads around it. And I'm going to go on a limb and say, I hope to bring some concepts and thoughts to you today that you just haven't had around what it means to go to cloud and think about it in a whole new way, in a way that you can understand and articulate and really put together in your mind all the things you have to think about when your organization moves to cloud and what it means to you as a person who works in transformation or just as a person who works in a company. So let's get into it. When my kids were little, I used to take them on vacation to my mom's. 4 children between the ages of 11 and 3, didn't have that much money. We would take them out each day to the park. They didn't know any better. We'd go home, spend the night at my mom's, and it was great. But as they got older, we had to do more. So one year, I said, we're going to go to Canada's Wonderland. And the kids were stoked. Wonderland is rides and water park and big animals walking around and sunshine, and it's just the greatest thing ever. And my kids were really wired about going to Canada's Wonderland. Well, how does this relate? Going to the cloud is like Wonderland. It's AI, it's machine learning, it's data analytics, scalability, agility, all these wonderful things that you hear about the cloud are all waiting there for you. But here's the thing, you have to get there. And many organizations are not there yet. The pent-up demand at National Defense and in many of the departments that I work with and organizations that I interact with, people are super excited about what the cloud can bring, all those things I just said. But we're not there yet. We're on our way, and the organizations are just transforming to get there. So just like I told my kids in March that we were going to Wonderland in August, organizations want to get there, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So another story, which I'm sure will relate. When my kids were little, one of my boys, a 7-year-old, was in a play at school. He played a tree and he was fantastic. We were very excited about going to see him. So the drill is you get up in the morning, you go to work, you work hard, you come home, dinner, clean up, and get off to the school. You're at the school at 6:45, and it's like I need a coffee, and I need a coffee now. So that particular night, I get a coffee. I'm very happy. Another parent spilled coffee on themselves. It wasn't terrible or anything, but it brought the school to action. The next day, the public school said, no coffee at school events. And I get that. It's mayhem. So they got to bring in a rule because something happened. Well, what does this have to do with going to the cloud? Well, no coffee is the world that we live in at work. There are guidelines, rules, processes, things that we do. Every day we go to work, there's all of these constraints in this environment that we work in. And so many of the rules and constraints and processes that we have to deal with, we don't even know why they were put in place. Because 15 years ago, somebody spilled coffee on themselves. And to this day at that public school, there is no coffee at school events. It's the same thing in your workplace and mine. And what I'm suggesting here is that this is about process improvement. This is about looking at next gen IT and thinking to yourself, what processes do we have that we have to keep? Because we run a business, it can't be the Wild West. But at the same time, you need to challenge every process that you use so that you can change your organization to truly take advantage of the capabilities of cloud computing. There's another very important consideration about going to the cloud, and it's money. And what I can tell you is that every vacation that I've ever been on cost more than I thought it was going to. That's pretty much the end of that story. It's going to cost more at first to go to the cloud than you think. There's a thing in IT, and it's not just cloud, it's IT transformation for the last 20 or 30 years. It's called the IT transformation cost bump. And what that means is when you move some of your applications and services to the cloud, you cannot turn them off immediately. You have to run double instances of your applications and services. And even when you can turn off the application, it doesn't mean you can turn off a server. It doesn't mean you can close a data center. There's a time lag between when you're able to shut things down, even though you're already ramping up. And that results in what's known as the IT cost bump. And you need to be aware of that. If you're involved in a transformation project, a cloud journey project, or you have to report to executives, or you're just someone who works in an organization, there's always going to be that bump at the beginning where things cost a little more. In the end, the cloud will be more cost effective, but it doesn't happen right away. So it's something that you need to know and consider when making your plans. So back to the vacation. When my kids were little, we used to go camping. I have 4 children, as I mentioned. When you go camping with 4 children, it's fun. But there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of things you have to consider to plan, to get there. And even when you get there, when you're on a campsite with 4 children, there's a lot of work to do. So you wake up in the morning and the sun is shining and the kids are like, let's go to the beach. And you're like, oh my goodness, we have 3 hours of stuff to do before we're going to be at the beach. So you deal with it, but you finally get there. You sit down, you might have a book. 1 kid's in the water, 2 kids are running around, 1 kid you don't know where they are. And you're having fun. But you're not having that much fun because it's a lot of work. And then you look across the beach and you see this family and you think to yourself, how come I'm not having that much fun? Well, what I want to say about this is, on your way to the cloud, to reaping all the benefits that the cloud will bring, all the things I talked about, the advanced services, scalability, agility, monitoring, all those amazing things. And I truly, obviously, as the director of cloud for national defense, I believe in this to my core. But on your way, you're going to see other organizations For me, it's other government departments. For you, it may be other businesses who are there. You're going to go on LinkedIn and they're going to be, look, we're in the cloud, we moved, we're all in. And there's going to be all sorts of chatter and stuff to look at about people who are being highly successful on their journey. What I'm telling you is don't look too hard. Your journey is your own. A lot of the successes that are being put out there, they're successes, all right, but they only put out the good stuff. You don't see the warts. You don't see all the backroom stuff. So it's very important when you're doing something that is this transformative for an organization, that you need to concentrate on what it is that you're doing and not be thrown off by who you're comparing yourself to and what the rest of industry looks like it's doing. And you can see me on the video, so you know that's not me. I can assure you, not only is that not me, I've never looked like that. So this is just a picture that I brought. Okay. This might be the most important thing to remember. When you take your kids on vacation, there is one thing and one thing only that is the most important thing you have to do. And not by a little bit. Excuse me. It's not the top three. Excuse me. It's not in the top three. It is the number one thing that you have to worry about when you take children on a vacation or when you have children in this life. And that is keeping them safe and secure. Everything else comes second. When you get to Wonderland, it's crazy. You're in the gate and the kids are losing it. You have to line up your cell phones. You have to show them where security is. You have to tell them who they can and cannot talk to. And you take care of all of that. With little kids, you have to keep them close. With older kids, you have to set up meet times. Whatever those things are, you take care of all of those, and then the fun begins. When you're going to the cloud, the same thing holds true. Keeping your organization's data, information, and systems safe and secure, it is the lifeblood of your business. The number one consideration is safety and security of the business and the data that runs that business. The end. Now, with that said, I implore you, and it's just so important, and I'm fortunate to have a director of security that I work with who's very progressive. It's very important to rethink security. Most organizations tend to over-secure. You don't know, so you just say, oh, let's over-secure. But it slows you down. There's lots of processes in security that are not necessary depending on the classification of the data that you're dealing with. Now, this may or may not be intense in your organization, but for national defense, I can assure you it's a daily occurrence. And it's the number one thing that we have to worry about. So maybe it's a little more free-flowing out in enterprise, but I doubt it. I bet most executives and most organizations are highly hung up on security. So the trick when you're going to the cloud is you have to make sure everything is secure, but it's an opportunity to rethink how you do security and why you do security on different types of data. And it's a bit of a mind bender to do so, but it's really important because it can speed things up for you when you're trying to create new applications or you're trying to migrate from legacy systems to cloud systems. Things can just go better and more smoothly if you have an appropriate level of security on your data, depending on what it is. Being sure, of course, that you always have enough security for each level of data. It's very important, and progressive organizations understand that. Organizations that are gun shy or conservative always tend to over-secure, and I can assure you at National Defense, where I work, security is paramount. So the discussions about rethinking security are pretty intense, and we always err on the side of caution. It's just we don't want to, debilitate ourselves. And last but not least, if you've ever been on vacation with a 17-year-old, or you have ever been a 17-year-old, you can rest assured that they bring everything they own on vacation with them. You can be sure of it. But here's the thing about that, is I understand that. As a person who's running a transformation program, I deal with operations all the time. So when you think about going to someone and saying, hey, I know you work in operations. We're going to be moving our legacy systems to the cloud. I need you to prioritize everything that you do. All the applications, all the systems, all the tools that you use in IT. I need you to prioritize those and give me a list so that we can decide how much of that you're allowed to bring. And I've said those words to people. And I've also been an operations person who's had those words said to me. Well, when I work in operations, my response to that is this. It's like, first of all, transformation person, you don't know what I do for a living. So let's start there, right? Second thing is, I have a job like that I do all day. So what you're asking me to do to prioritize all my applications and services and tools and data, that's a lot of work. And I already have a job. So I'm going to do it because I know it's important. But it's not the thing that I do, right? And third of all, is people didn't come to work one day and say, hey, let's create all these applications just because creating an application and supporting it is a lot of work. People just don't make them up because they're fun. At one point in time, every tool kit that we have in IT in my department was used by someone for a reason. Now, I will admit that that might be over, and we do have to have prioritization, but we have to be realistic about what we can do here. We have to look at an approach where we can bucketize things, or we can have, phased approach towards identifying applications. We know what the top 3 or 4 or 5 are. Those are their enterprise things. But below that, prioritization is going to take time. And what I'm suggesting here for your organization, if you work in operations or you work in transformation, is for everyone to come to a common agreement that says, it's going to take a while for us to really understand the bottom half or the bottom third of our applications. So let's do a graduated prioritization here and say, these are the 5 or 6 big things that have to go, and focus on those. And sometimes you just have to leave a few things behind. And then when those servers get shut off and those applications aren't working anymore, someone's going to go, hey, there's a thing we don't have anymore, and maybe you'll have to rebuild it. You just have to be realistic about how complete you can be when you're doing your inventory and deciding what to move. So again, that's a consideration that makes life easier for people doing transformation, because they're going to get a lot more participation and understanding from the organization that they are impacting. And for operations people to understand that even though you do have a day job, it actually is part of your job to understand holistically the toolkit that supports the work that you do. And then those are big words, and I'm going to say most people don't know what that is, but it's something that you could look at making part of your daily existence. As hard as that is, there's a lot of discipline, but transformation in IT never stops. So this activity of understanding what your legacy is and what your application suite is, cloud computing is not the first time that's ever been asked. That's been asked 10 times in the last 20 years. And every time it's the same story. It's like, oh my gosh, we don't know. So organizationally, I think it's important to push to your executive to say, we need to bring that up on our priority list. We can't just have this spreadsheet that goes out of date every year. So enough about that, but it's very important because it drags you down. So where are we? We're going to the cloud. The cloud is the panacea. AI, machine learning, data analytics, scalability, monitoring and control, agility. It's fantastic. And every organization is going to be better off once they get to the cloud. On top of that, the way the industry is going right now is there's not really a lot of choice because support models are changing. The big players are all changing, and the choice of going to the cloud is no longer becoming a choice. And many organizations are already there, maybe not 100%, but they're well on their way. I'm going to say in the NGO world and the government world, they're probably lagging behind a little bit because of some other constraints. But the cloud is here today, and it is the foreseeable future, and there's nothing else beyond it at this point. We have policy and processes. So important to look across your organization and look across your desk and the work that you do and start to think about the processes that you use and why do you use them and how can you change them. This is a perfect excuse, a perfect reason to say we shouldn't do that anymore. There's a new way to work. Everybody wants that chance. But what is the stunning event that happens at work that allows you to really look at that and get executive attention in that space? Your cloud journey is that reason. Funding. Got to make sure you have funding. If you try and do it by hook or by crook, it's going to be hard. And if there are leaders out there in the audience who do control money, please understand how that transformation bump is going to work. It's not new. There's lots of material on it. And understanding your money situation, critical. There's everybody else. What can I tell you? Just don't go on LinkedIn that often. Don't look around too much. You're doing a good job, but it's a hard journey. It's not like that, no matter what the vendor community tells you. You've got to plan how your organization is going to take advantage of this new landscape of computing. Security, first and foremost. I already went on and on about that. Never, ever lose sight of that. No one in the organization believes security is not important, and it's everybody's job to pay attention to it. And legacy. What do you need to bring? And again, this is an organizational thing where I'm suggesting that if you are on your way to the cloud right now, that's something you're probably doing. If your journey is in front of you, it's something you should start doing, is understanding what tools you use and which ones you're going to use in the future. And if you're already there, I would suggest trying to build it into your organizational and daily work processes. And off we go. Thank you very much. I hope I hit on some salient points, and I look forward to some good questions about the material. Thank you so much. How did I make the connection between my family vacation and going to the cloud? I think it probably happened when I was thinking about how to explain how good it's going to be to get to the cloud, and I thought about Wonderland. And then I just kind of worked it out from there. And I also was trying very hard to find a way to talk about this in a way that people could grasp. Because as I said early on, it's a difficult thing to grasp, but people can really relate to what it means to go somewhere with a large group of people, which is exactly what you're doing when you're going to cloud. So the question is, what should be the approach when embracing multi-cloud? Going multi-cloud, I want to draw the distinction between multi-cloud and hybrid cloud before I answer that question. Multi-cloud is you have multiple cloud vendors. Hybrid cloud is you have a connection between those vendors and your private cloud situation as a definition. What would be the approach? Well, I'll give you the it depends answer. It really depends how big your organization is and what you want to accomplish by having a new IT in your new IT environment. But I'll give a better answer than that. Is going multi-cloud is really the only approach that I support. Obviously, the organization that I'm with is huge, so we can support it financially and organizationally. But you really don't want to go to a single a vendor because you may not have access to the applications that you want or the services that you want in one vendor versus another. And you also want to be able to play one against the other. So it was a pretty easy decision for us to make that we went multi-cloud because of our size. If you're smaller, it's a little bit of a tougher decision. But the other good news there is if you're smaller, going to a single vendor, they're probably going to have the services and the capabilities that you need. The question is about how do you parse through the legacy processes? Well, I'm going to start by saying what you shouldn't do. As an organization, and I'll just be bold and say it, you should not undertake a separate process improvement initiative. I think we've probably all experienced the fact that those don't really do much because you're having people who are outside of the day-to-day fray, do this assessment of how your processes work, and it looks like anarchy from the outside. So you don't get good results when you separate it from operations. The way that you can prioritize your processes that you need to change it's not really complicated, but it requires a little bit of work each day. You need to start to document and make a list, a simple list of the things you do every day. It probably happens when you're with your friends at the end of the day and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I had to do that again. It's so painful and has no value. Well, you have those. So write those down and you know where those are going to be prioritized. And you have the other ones that are your go-to, the things that help you sleep at night, because you know that by following those processes, you can get your job done. So it really starts at the ground level, and it has to be done with the people who are doing the work that supports the business of your organization. If you externalize it, it will be unsuccessful. And the last thing I'll say about it is have a realistic approach. You're going to know stuff in a week. But a lot of organizations will say, oh, we have to understand all of our processes and put them in a massive spreadsheet, and then that doesn't work either. Within a week or 2 weeks, you're going to know the key processes that you're going to have to move with you to the cloud, or you're going to have to change, and start working on those and let the list grow organically just based on people coming to work every day. Here's one. What are the thoughts on why the public cloud providers have not delivered a single unified capability? Wow. Okay, I'll take a stab at that one. I think one of the things you're battling there is just the fact that there are two organizations that are in the same business going after the same market. So the inspiration or the desire for the hyperscalers to find unified strategies in the spaces that you're talking about, and let me just double check it. Yeah, is they're just not enthused about doing it because they're talking about sharing the pie. Where I think that's going to come to fruition, that's why I think it's going slow. There's a couple of other factors. One is related to an earlier question is, I think a lot of organizations haven't made the call around whether they want to have a multi-cloud or a single cloud strategy. Single cloud is simpler. You have one vendor, and if they can meet your requirements, it's just easier to manage. But if you're humming and hawing and saying, well, we could do multi-cloud later, it's harder for the vendors to meet your requirements. Where I think it's going to come to fruition is in the cloud management platform. So this is the single pane of glass, and I'm making air quotes because that's been a thing in IT for as long as I've been in IT, and it very rarely comes to fruition. But I think it's going to come to fruition here in the cloud management plane, where the vendors are going to really have no choice in putting out a toolkit that is robust in any of the hyperscaler environments. We'll see if that comes true. I don't believe that that cloud management platform, in the way I describe it, so single pane of glass or having a common way to manage your multiple environments, I don't think that exists today. There are tools, and the vendors will tell you, but in reality, I think it's a ways off, and you're going to always be battling the fact that you have multiple vendors who have to play nice together. I think that's why it's lagging. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me personally if you have any more questions regarding the journey to the cloud, and enjoy the rest of the conference.